My mother-in-law, a woman who usually prides herself on impeccable timing, was explicitly uninvited for my wedding. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? Wrong. She still showed up, marched down the aisle in a matching white gown, and what she did at the reception didn't just cause a scene. It tore my brand new family in two, and kept it that way for 7 long, silent months. I'm not exaggerating when I say my wedding day almost ended in a 911 call, and honestly, a few of our guests probably considered making one. My name's Maya, I'm 28, and up until that fateful Saturday, I genuinely thought the wildest, most rebellious thing I'd ever done was dye my hair shocking pink in college. Oh, how delightfully naive I was. That memory now pales in comparison to the absolute spectacle that unfolded on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Trust me, you're going to want to grab a snack, maybe even a drink. This is going to be a long, wild ride, and you'll need something to clutch onto.
Please take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell to receive notifications every time we upload a new video.
The first red flag 3 weeks before the big day, Jason, my fiancé, and I thought it would be a lovely idea to invite his mom to brunch. A casual get-together, just to go over the final timeline, make sure everyone was on the same page, and perhaps share a mimosa or two. We wanted her to feel included, valued, part of the planning process. Big mistake. Huge. She strolled in a full 40 minutes late, radiating an air of self-importance that practically shimmered. Without a word of apology for her tardiness, she slid a crumpled, coffee-stained piece of paper across the table towards us. "I've made a few tweaks," she announced, her smile far too sweet to be genuine. Tweak 1, she declared, was that she would walk me down the aisle alone. Not my dad, who had, actually raised me for 18 years, taught me how to ride a bike, and would undoubtedly be crying happy tears as he gave me away. Her reasoning? My dad got to raise me for 18 years and she deserved spotlight too. As if my wedding was some sort of parental awards ceremony where participation trophies were handed out. Tweak 2 was a real doozy. The traditional mother-son dance would be unceremoniously swapped for a mother-groom waltz, right after my first dance with Jason. Her stated purpose? So everyone could see who really raised him. Because apparently, a lifetime of love and care could only be properly acknowledged through a choreographed dance routine directly following mine. The audacity! And then, Tweak 3, she demanded a private room to get ready in, separate from the bridal party. Her reasoning for this rather peculiar request? Bridesmaids smell like cheap vanilla. I kid you not. My bridesmaids, my closest friends, suddenly reduced to a collective, offensively scented entity. Jason's fork, laden with a piece of pancake, literally froze mid-air, halfway to his mouth. His eyes, usually so warm and full of affection, widened in utter disbelief. I, on the other hand, let out an awkward, nervous laugh, convinced she had to be joking. Who says these things? Who plans to hijack a wedding in such a brazen, almost theatrical manner? Surely, she was just being her usual dramatic self, trying to get a rise out of us. But the glint in her eye, the firm set of her jaw, told a different story. She wasn't joking. Not one bit. She ended the brunch, pushing her chair back with a definitive scrape, with a line that still makes my blood run cold. "If you loved my son, you'd agree." And then she was gone, leaving us sitting amidst the half-eaten pastries and shattered illusions of a peaceful wedding. It was clear then, this wasn't just about a few tweaks. It was about control, about making her presence undeniable, even if it meant overshadowing everything else. It was the first glaring red flag that this wedding wasn't just ours anymore. The uninvite. That night, the air in our apartment was thick with a mixture of disbelief and simmering anger. Jason and I laid it all out, plainly and firmly. Her demands weren't happening. Period. We tried to be reasonable, to explain that a wedding is about the couple, not about fulfilling a parent's desire for spotlight. Her response was swift and digital, a thumbs-down emoji followed by a voice memo. In it, her voice, dripping with saccharine condescension, called me a little girl playing dress-up. The implication was clear. I was too immature, too insignificant to truly understand the gravitas of marriage, or perhaps, the gravitas of her importance. By sunrise the next day, my phone had become a buzzing, vibrating nightmare. 22 missed calls, not from my actual friends or family, but from random relatives of Jason's I'd never even met. Each call was followed by a voicemail or a text, all repeating the same infuriating gaslighting line, "Let her have her moment, you have the rest of your lives." As if a moment of her ego inflation was worth sacrificing the sanctity of our entire wedding day. The pressure was immense, a coordinated attack designed to wear us down, to make us feel guilty for daring to set a boundary. We tried to compromise, truly we did. We offered her the chance to pick the song for the mother-son dance, a gesture of goodwill, a peace offering. "No problem," we said. A simple request, easily accommodated. But she didn't want a compromise, she wanted capitulation. She wanted the entire sequence rewritten, her way, or nothing. And so, nothing it was. With heavy hearts, and a surprising amount of resolve, we mailed her an embossed, elegant card that, in the politest terms possible, informed her she was no longer welcome at the venue. It felt drastic, heartbreaking even, but necessary. Jason, bless his heart, insisted on hand-delivering it himself. "This is my circus," he said, his voice tight with a mix of frustration and resignation, "and she's my monkey." A dark humor, perhaps, but one I understood completely. He told me she slammed the door in his face so hard the frame rattled. We thought that was the end of it, a painful but definitive conclusion to the pre-wedding drama. We truly believed
Please take a moment to like and
the
subscribe to
storm.
our channel.
Oh,
Hit
how
the bell to
wrong
receive
we were.
notifications every
That,
time
my
we upload a new
friends,
video.
Was merely intermission. The main act was yet to come. The crash the morning of the ceremony arrived, bright and beautiful, almost mockingly so. The sun was shining, a gentle breeze rustled through the trees, candles flickered softly, and a string quartet was already playing, filling the air with a truly magical vibe. I was in the bridal suite, surrounded by my closest friends, the nervous excitement a palpable energy in the room. My hair was perfect, my makeup flawless, my dress a dream. Everything felt right, finally. And then my maid of honor, bless her observant heart, whispered, "Maya, we have a code email." My blood ran cold. My heart leaped into my throat. Code MIL. The dreaded signal. I peeked into the hall, my stomach churning with a mixture of dread and disbelief. And there she was. Unmistakable. My mother-in-law, striding purposefully, wearing a floor-length white lace dress. A white lace dress that, to my horror, mirrored mine almost exactly, save for a rather aggressively plunging neckline. The photographer, a sweet, slightly overwhelmed young man, later confessed to me that she had purchased it the very same afternoon we had uninvited her. A deliberate, defiant act of sartorial sabotage. Security, bless their earnest but ultimately outmatched hearts, tried to stop her. They stepped forward, looking suitably stern, but she simply brushed past them, proclaiming loudly enough for half the corridor to hear that she had a mother's right to witness the covenant. A mother's right? To crash her son's wedding, dressed as a deranged, vengeful bride? The security guards, caught between their professional duty and the social awkwardness of physically removing an elderly woman in a wedding dress, looked at me, their eyes pleading for guidance. I looked at Jason, who had just emerged from his own getting-ready room, his face a mask of shock and horror. He looked at the officiant, a kind, elderly gentleman who simply shrugged. Apparently, you can't exactly physically remove family without causing an even bigger scene, especially when they're invoking covenants. So, with a collective sigh of defeat, we started the processional. It felt surreal, a slow-motion nightmare. As my dad, his hand now gripping mine so hard I lost circulation, walked me down the aisle, I could feel her eyes on me. She sat front row, center aisle, a dark, glaring presence amidst the joyful faces. Her gaze was like a laser beam, filled with an icy fury, as if I had personally kidnapped her son and was holding him hostage at the altar. I kept my eyes fixed on Jason, on his loving, apologetic face. Just get to the vows, I told myself, my inner voice a desperate whisper. Just get through the vows and it'll be over. I was so incredibly naive, wasn't I? Little did I know, the vows were just the warm-up act. The reception bomb after the ceremony, there was a brief, blissful period of normalcy. Cocktail hour ran surprisingly smooth. Signature margaritas flowed freely, the photo booth was a hit, and for a fleeting moment, I indulged in the blissful ignorance that the worst was behind us. Guests mingled, laughed, and celebrated, seemingly oblivious to the drama that had preceded it. Jason and I stole a few moments, exchanging whispered reassurances and trying to convince ourselves that we had indeed averted a full-blown disaster. Then came the toasts. My best friend, Sarah, a vibrant, hilarious force of nature, raised her glass, her eyes sparkling with genuine happiness. She began her heartfelt speech, recounting funny anecdotes from our college days, praising Jason, and wishing us a lifetime of joy. She was mid-sentence, painting a beautiful picture of our future, when a sharp, unmistakable clink cut through the air. My mother-in-law, who had been sitting quietly at a corner table, suddenly stood up. She had clinked a steak knife against a champagne flute, not once, but twice, demanding attention. The DJ, caught off guard, slowly faded the music out, plunging the room into an eerie silence. She stood there, a triumphant, almost manic grin on her face, and proclaimed, loud enough that even the folks on the patio could probably hear her, "I'd like to thank the bride for finally showing her true colors, manipulative and disrespectful." Gasps. Literal, audible gasps rippled through the room. It wasn't just a few murmurs, it was a collective intake of breath, a wave of shock that washed over our guests. My cousin's boyfriend, ever the documentarian, immediately pulled out his phone and started recording. To this day, I can still hear the audio in my head at 2 a.m., replaying her venomous words, the horrified silence that followed. She then turned her gaze to Jason, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper, yet still carrying across the hushed ballroom, "You've chosen a child over blood. Remember this day when she leaves you." It was a curse, a prophecy of doom delivered right there, in front of everyone we loved. Jason, my usually calm and composed husband, stepped forward, his voice shaking with a mixture of anger and mortification. "Mom," he pleaded, "sit down
Please take a
or
moment
leave."
to like and subscribe to our
He was
channel.
trying to
Hit the
assert
bell to
himself,
receive
to
notifications
reclaim
every time
some
we upload a new
semblance of
video.
order. But she wasn't done. She responded by grabbing the cake knife, the very knife we were meant to use for our first celebratory cut, walked purposefully towards our beautiful three-tier buttercream wedding cake, and with a flourish, sliced the words, "I'm sorry," into the side. Not "I'm sorry" to us, but a grotesque, defiant "I'm sorry" to herself, a declaration of her own perceived victimhood, etched into our symbol of joy. That was it. My brain simply couldn't process any more. I blacked out. Not in some poetic, metaphoric way. I fainted, straight into the arms of my photographer, who, bless his quick reflexes, caught me just before I hit the floor. When I came to, the room was in chaos. She had finally been escorted out, not by security, but by my Uncle Frank, who, it turns out, is a part-time bouncer and has a surprisingly firm grip. Half the guests were gone, having made their swift exits, probably scarred for life. The other half, those who remained, were either comforting us or live-streaming the entire dramatic meltdown. Our dream wedding had become a viral sensation, a cautionary tale playing out in real time. The fallout the next morning, Jason's phone rang non-stop. The quiet, post-wedding bliss we had hoped for was shattered by a barrage of calls and messages. His aunt, who had always seemed so sweet, accused me of poisoning him against the family, as if I'd slipped him some sort of anti-MIL potion. Then came the email from his dad, devoid of any congratulations or well wishes. Instead, it was a bill for the wedding gift they had sent, with a chilling note, "Return the check since we weren't truly welcome." It was an act of petty vindictiveness that stung far more than any shouted insult. We didn't cash the check, of course, but we also didn't respond to any of them. Silence became the new normal, a heavy, suffocating blanket that descended upon our nascent marriage. 7 months of zero contact. No holidays, no birthdays, Not even a text when Jason's grandma had a hip replacement. It was as if a significant chunk of his family had simply vanished, leaving a gaping wound in their place. Therapy helped immensely. I highly recommend it for anyone navigating complex family dynamics, especially after a wedding disaster. It gave us a safe space to process the trauma, the anger, the confusion. But the guilt, a silent, insidious beast, gnawed at Jason like termites. He'd spend hours staring at old family photos, his brow furrowed, a profound sadness in his eyes. More than once, I'd hear him whisper, "I'm an orphan by choice." The weight of choosing his wife over his mother, and the subsequent estrangement from his entire paternal side, was a burden he carried heavily. Watching him suffer, I knew I had to try something. So, eventually, after weeks of careful deliberation and drafting, I wrote his mom a letter. It wasn't an apology, not in the slightest. It was a statement, a clear articulation of boundaries. "If you can respect us," I wrote, "if you can treat us with kindness and acknowledge our relationship as adults, then we can talk." I sent it, bracing myself for another onslaught of vitriol. Her reply, when it came, was surprisingly concise, a single thumbs-up emoji. Was it progress? Maybe. Maybe. It was a tiny flicker of hope in the vast darkness of our estrangement. The tentative peace last month, after weeks of back-and-forth texts and a cautious exchange of availability, we finally met for coffee. Not at her house, not at ours, but in a neutral bookstore cafe, a quiet, unassuming place where public decorum might hopefully prevail. She wore beige, a stark contrast to the defiant white of the wedding, and kept her hands folded neatly on the table the entire time, almost as if she was trying to contain herself. I went in expecting fireworks, another dramatic outburst, a rehash of old grievances. Instead, I got waterworks. She cried. Real tears, not the performative kind. She confessed, through choked sobs, that she had felt replaced the moment Jason proposed. She said she'd panicked, felt her son slipping away, and reacted out of a raw, desperate fear of losing him entirely. It didn't excuse the cake vandalism, or the public humiliation, or the 7 months of silence, not by a long shot. But hearing her articulate that deep-seated insecurity, that primal fear of abandonment, humanized her a little. Just a little. It offered a glimpse into the emotional turmoil that had fueled her destructive behavior. We left that cafe with a handshake, not a hug, a polite, almost formal acknowledgement of a truce, rather than a full reconciliation. Holidays are still very much up in the air, a minefield we're not quite ready to navigate. The wedding video, that infamous footage of the cake incident? We let my cousin, the one who recorded it, post it privately on a closed social media group. It's racked up thousands of comments, everything from "call the cops, this woman is insane," to "forgive, life's short, family is everything." The internet, ever the expert, offered no easy answers.
Please take a moment to like
Maybe
and subscribe to our channel.
we'll be able to
Hit the
laugh
bell
about
to receive
it, to tell the
notifications every
story
time
with
we
a
upload
sense
a new
of
video.
detached amusement. Right now, it's still a bit too raw, a wound that's slowly, tentatively healing. But we're getting there. We're just glad, profoundly glad, that no one ended up in handcuffs that day. It's a low bar for wedding success, but we'll take it. So that's the story in all its messy, dramatic glory of how my mother-in-law crashed my wedding and, in her own twisted narrative, blamed me for ruining her life. We're not fully healed, not by a long shot. The scars are still there, a constant reminder of the day our marriage began amidst chaos. But we're talking, tentatively, cautiously. And that, believe it or not, is more than I could have said for those silent, agonizing 7 months. It's a start. If you're planning a wedding or navigating any significant life event that involves family, remember this. You can't control who shows up or what they do. But you can control how you respond. Set boundaries early, clearly, and firmly. Hire security if you need to, and don't be afraid to use them. And maybe, just maybe, for the love of all that is holy, keep the cake knife out of reach. Your sanity, and your buttercream, will thank you. So what do you think about this story? Have you ever been in a similar situation? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.